YouTube guidelines shown here, videos which intend to educate, are documentary by nature and do not glorify the use of drugs, though abide by the community safety guidelines and are eligible for monetization. The following video does not glorify the use of drugs, instead attempts to be non-biased while delivering vital life-saving information disguised as entertainment.
Now, before we get into today's story, I need to make it clear that I don't personally condone the misuse of either legal or illegal drugs. I'm telling you guys this story for safety and harm reduction so that you can learn what not to do, as in don't follow in my footsteps and never do anything that I talk about in these videos. I'm not promoting drug use here. I'm just wanting to keep people safe, and I need to make that crystal clear. Now that I got that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into today's story. It was just a regular Saturday night. I was hanging out with my housemates, Aaron and Trevor. We lived right across from the University Unitec in New Zealand, and my partner Jasmine was at work for the evening. Now, Trevor was throwing a bit of a get-together. He worked as an arborist, and I'm not sure what that has to do with anything, but he had a lot of interesting friends. He was kind of like, I guess the best way to describe him would be a playboy. And Aaron was one of the, I guess he'd be a local New Zealander. They're called the Maori. I can never pronounce it right. But he didn't really act like one. They usually have these thick accents and like, oh yeah, bro, how you doing, bro?
Hey, fucking put the camera down, babe. Hey, take it easy, man.
This evening, we were planning to go to Trevor's get-together at a local bar, but Aaron decided to stray from his regular routine of drinking alcohol and taking 2CB, and he wanted to try something called 2CP, which is one of the most potent of all of the 2CX compounds, which Alexander Shulgin initially synthesized and popularized in his book, PCAL, Phenethylamines I Have Known and Loved. Now, on Psychonaut Wiki, they describe 2CP as the most similar to LSD out of all of his creations, in the sense that it's the most visual, it can take you the deepest, and it does have some potential for mystical experience. Now, on the downside, 2CP is also one of the most potent. An overdose is described as 12 milligrams and over, and an average dose is anywhere from 5 to 10 milligrams. Now, 5 to 10 is an abysmal amount. Most scales, even ones that go 3 zeros past the decimal, will not accurately weigh out anything less than, I don't know, maybe 30 to 50 milligrams. To weigh these doses accurately, what you have to do is something called volumetric doses, where you would say weigh 100 milligrams and then you drop that into a cup of water, which was measured at maybe 100 milliliters of water. So then you would know every milliliter of water had about 1 milligram of your compound, and you could dose that with something like an eyedropper. Now, I did tell Aaron about this prior to dosing, and I told him how dangerous it could be if you accidentally took too much 2CP. I mean, the difference between 10 and 12 is quite slim. Now, to be fair, I think most people consider 14 to be an overdose, but once you go past 10, you're just in some, those are harsh waters, man. The waves can easily capsize your boat at that point. I tried to warn Aaron as much as possible prior to going into this, but he was pretty gung-ho on trying this 2CP rather. I think in his mind, he figured that since he enjoyed 2CB so much, that 2CP, just because the names are so similar, well, I think he anticipated it would be an equally as pleasant experience. And this is a great example of how just because two compounds look similar when you look at them on a chemical level, or they even have the same name, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the same kind of experience. I once asked Aaron what he liked so much about 2CB, and he always described it as just gentle and nice. Kind of like MDMA to him. It made him more social and just more open and relaxed. Alcohol, on the other hand, would do the opposite. It would make him quite violent and angry.
You taking a video?
Yeah. Please explain what just happened. Why did you run away, Aaron? After you drank all my alcohol, you just run away.
I don't like the camera, man. Very simple.
Why don't you like the camera?
Yo, camera.
Why don't you like the camera?
Camera's gonna light up. Put this shit away.
Hey, you're enjoying a night off my dollar, so you sit back, and I'm gonna own you right now. Sit back. I'm gonna own you right now.
So whenever he'd be in that angry alcohol state, he'd take some 2CB, and it would usually just, be like his little calm down pill and the highlight of his evening. It's also fair to say that he wasn't just taking the 2CP on his own. He definitely was drunk. I can't tell you how much he drank because he'd often just shut his door and just get drunk in his room. Fast forwarding several years, he has told me now that he doesn't drink at all and that after DMT it changed his life. He's not an alcoholic and he turned everything around, which is awesome. I'm not trying to make you look bad in this video. I'm just explaining the story from my perspective. Anyway, you want to make sure that you dose in the comfort of your home or somewhere that's familiar to you. You definitely don't want to be coming up in a bar around strangers who are drunk and loud and yeah. Now, I also wasn't the best trip sitter because there's no way in hell I was gonna waste my Saturday on nothing. I worked full-time at a bank during this period and I really valued my weekends, and this is when I was doing my most psychedelic exploration. So I wasn't about to take 2CP with him. That's actually one of the compounds that I never tried because it just intimidated me a little too much, especially with the dosing. I was always frightened that I was gonna mess up. So I decided to be on 2CB and I took a pretty hefty dose. I think I was on about 35 milligrams, which at the time was the highest dose of 2CB I'd ever attempted. Now, we took the compound prior to leaving the house, right before we got in the taxi, with the plan to come up at the bar while we were meeting Trevor's friends. Now, Trevor wasn't into drugs. We tried to talk to him about them, but he just wasn't having any of it. He was like the classic bro, is a nice way of putting it. I'm not trying to shit on Trevor. He just kind of turned on us at one point, but that's another story for another time. We got in the cab. We were all feeling good. We weren't really feeling the effects yet. I hadn't drank any alcohol or anything. I was thinking that I was going to be taking care of Aaron, but I also kind of hoped for the best just because I had actually never seen anyone try 2CP before. So I really didn't even know myself what the effects were going to be like. We got to the bar and there was a nice patio. And I remember sitting out there and just not really feeling the most social. 2CB came on pretty fast. Drugs used to hit me way quicker than everyone else. If you have a fast metabolism or if you're just sensitive in general, the come up tends to come on a lot sooner than most people. Meaning after our 20-minute cab ride, I was already on the up and up. And I remember very vividly sitting at a picnic table on the patio. Aaron was sitting beside me and Trevor had gone in to go and say hi to all his buddies, looking at just the wood grains, and I could see just the grain kind of doing the rivery flowy motion, and I wasn't really feeling any anxiety or fear at all. I felt good. 2CB was always a mixed bag for me. It was like half the time I'd reach in and I'd pull out a decent experience, and the other half of the time I'd reach in and I'd pull out some paranoia. I often would feel frightened of my physical safety on 2CB. I don't know. It's just something about how it made my body feel. If you were to compare it to LSD, 2CB is like the body sensations times 4. The pins and needles effect can get so intense, it almost feels numbing, especially at the high doses. At least that's how it felt for me. Fortunately, this time, I wasn't really getting much of that. There were some negative effects that came later in the trip, which I'll get into as we get there. So anyway, I'm just sitting there watching the picnic table. I don't think Aaron was really feeling much at this point. I was definitely starting to trip pretty hard. We decided to go in and try to buy a beer and try to socialize with Trevor and his gang, but I could tell when I looked at Aaron's face that he was even more uncomfortable with the idea than I was. Trevor knew that we were taking a drug, and I wanted to show him that these compounds weren't, what he thought they were, that you could still function normally on them, which was a stupid idea on my part. So we went in and got a drink. I tried talking to some girl who was there, asked her how her night was, and when she asked me, I pretty much just looked at her and said, "The lights in here look really cool. Everything's so bright and fascinating, and there's so much reds and oranges," and she's just like, "Okay. Sweet, it's nice talking to you." I'm like, "Yeah, you too. I'm just gonna go check out those lights over there." Well, I wasn't really experiencing any negative effects, at least at this time. Aaron, on the other hand, appeared to be getting more and more uncomfortable in his own skin. Looked as though he was making a lot of frantic motions and the classic look that someone gives when they're having a paranoid freak out. Well, that was him. Told me he had to get out of there. He couldn't stand being inside anymore, and we went to sit outside. Now, I had bought a beer just to try to fit in, and I think I took one sip of it, and I was like, oh, this is not very good tasting, and I just left it on the counter. Felt bad for wasting beer. So we went outside. We sat back at the picnic table. His progress proceeded to decline further and further downhill. It got to the point where I was just out there just kind of giving me his arm. I'm like, man, it's okay. Like, this is just the come up. This part will pass. You're going to feel good. This is probably the point where I should tell you what his dose was. You're all probably thinking, if it's such a slim difference between a good dose and an overdose, how do we know that he didn't accidentally take too much? Well, I made sure that he weighed it, I kid you not, 20 times. And I also made sure that he didn't take 10. I told him the most to take was 8. So he took 8 milligrams. At least that's what we think. Meaning if the scale was off, hopefully at most he was around 12. Hopefully he didn't hit that 14 milligram mark, but we don't know. I mean, there's also the chance that it was less. They say with those scales, you want to leave enough freedom for, well, 5 to 10 milligrams in either direction. That's how inaccurate they can be. Look there. Oh, do it again. Whoa, that is some cool stuff, man. Where'd you get this?
Get this.
Where'd you get it?
I get Pop Patrol.
Paw Patrol gave it to you?
Yeah.
You're so beautiful. Okay, go see Mom. Say bye.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you.
So Aaron's freaking out, and I told him, look, we can go and find Jasmine, and if that might make you feel better. I thought that maybe all he needs to do is just walk. Sometimes when you're freaking out on a psychedelic, especially during the come-up, just walking helps. But to you at the time, the thought of walking may not seem that pleasant, or it might not even be rational as a viable way to shift your mood. But even in real life, I find if you're kind of stuck and you can't, get out of your own head, going for a walk works great. So on a psychedelic, it works even better. So I took his hand. I said, you know what, fuck Trevor's party, or his get-together. He'll understand. Let's just get out of here. He clearly didn't even really care to hang out with us anyway. I took Aaron's hand. I said, we're going to go and walk to where Jasmine works. Now, I put it in my phone, had the Samsung Galaxy 4 at this point when that thing was brand new, and I remember putting in the directions, and yeah, that was, thank goodness for the phone, because if it wasn't for that, there's no way in hell I knew where we were going. The phone said that it was going to be about an hour and 10-minute walk. Now, anyone who's taken a psychedelic knows an hour and 10 minutes, especially as you're peaking, doesn't feel like an hour and 10 minutes. It feels like a day and 10 hours. Time is stretched out. Sometimes a minute can feel like an eternity, so let's just, put that in your pipe and smoke it. So we're walking, and I've never been down any of these streets before. Realistically, should have called a cab, but I was pretty broke at this point, and I think he was even more broke than me, so that just was off the table. I just knew that my safe spot was with Jasmine, so I figured if we're around her, maybe she can help him calm down as well, because I wasn't being of any service to the guy. I'm tripping pretty hard. I'm getting some good visuals. I wasn't really having any kind of mystical experiences, though, because 2CB's never really done that for me. It helps me look at myself and, pinpoint problems that I need to fix in my life, but it's never done the mystical thing or brought me face to face with alien beings like other compounds have. But I was still tripping hard to the point where my faculties weren't in order. It was more challenging for me to make decisions in the sense of taking care of someone who might bad trip. Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to be good, and I knew that if he got worse, if he started panicking more, there's the chance that his panic is going to spill over into my experience. And if we were both in that panic mode together, well, that's a recipe for a hospital visit, which I wasn't intending on doing this evening. So we walked, and I remember Aaron and I were we were trying to chat, just talk casually. I just kept trying to distract him from his thoughts, and I was just talking about God knows what. But I remember we had walked down this one street, and it was kind of kind of a ghetto-ish area, and Aaron was saying, oh man, we can't go this way. We can't do it. This is dangerous, man. I've never been around Auckland at night. And I'm just looking at him laughing. I'm like, really, dude? You're worried about Auckland at night? I mean, I'm not even from the States, but where I'm from, there was occasionally shootings at the restaurant, like just around the corner from where I used to go out and do pickup stuff, and stabbings, and I was not in a very good city for a few years. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell Auckland is going to compare to what I used to walk through at night, let alone the walk I used to make just to get my MDMA when I was addicted to it. I walked through, like gang areas for that. That was not fun. I was an idiot. So I'm just, I'm comparing this area to my experience, and I'm thinking he's insane. To me, it looked all great, looked nice. It looks like the fucking tropical island, man. And you're saying this is scary. But sure enough, we did walk by this group of dudes who were standing in their driveway who decided that they were going to try to pick a fight with us, and that's all you need is some strangers, some big Maori guys trying to pick a fight with you when you're tripping and you can't even see straight, let alone think straight. I just heard, like, in the distance someone saying, bitches, 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 little bitches. And I'm like, what? What, are they catcalling us? Like, what the hell is this dude doing? Like, it was the weirdest insult I've gotten. Like, some dude's like making this girly voice, like with all his tough buddies, or like, like as I walk by, they're like, bitches, 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 bitches. And I'm like, what? I must be tripping, dog, because this is ridiculous. And it's freaking out. He's like, don't stop, man. Just ignore. Keep walking. They're gonna kill us. I'm like, Aaron, they're not gonna kill us. Like, I don't even know what the fuck that is. Like, what is he? Calling for birds? I don't get it. And he's like, just like, Aaron's more scared than I am. I'm just like, okay, well, yeah, I'm not gonna let this affect me. What am I gonna do? Go over there and be like, who you calling bitches? Bitch, 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 boy, you're the bitch now. Like, what am I gonna do? Hey, man, I'm on 2CB. I can break through walls with my nose. My eyes shoot laser beams. I'm invincible now. You could throw me into a car and I would just bounce off and get right back up like those motherfuckers on PCP like you see in the movies. I don't know. I'm just being stupid now. So yeah, we just kept walking. I just thought it was hilarious. And finally, we arrived at Jasmine's place of employment, which happened to be a really, really big bar at the harbor. Like, not a little place, like massive patio, lineups to get in. Luckily, the bouncer knew me as Jasmine's crazy boyfriend who sometimes shows up crying because he's just so fucked. And I went inside, like, you know, got to bypass the line, patted me down, took Aaron with me. And I knew that, you know, Jasmine was getting off in like 5 minutes, luckily. So I figured she could help us and drive us all back home so we could tuck Aaron in his bed and reassure him that he's going to be okay. And I also needed Jasmine to, you know, check his pulse accurately and make sure that he was physically okay because of what he'd taken. I didn't even know if there was actual reason for concern or if he was just freaking out because he was confused, because he was bad tripping. I had no idea. Unfortunately, things continued to spin downwards. So anyway, so we get into the bar, I find her outside, and she was talking to this older woman with gray hair and glasses, I believe. No, black hair and glasses, and she seemed really nasty. So I went up to Jasmine, I pulled her aside, I was like, I need to talk to you. Aaron, tonight, ingested some 2CP, and he's freaking out. Now, keep in mind, Jasmine was not fond of Aaron at all. She really didn't like him, and she's like, oh, is that so, huh? And I'm like, and I'm on a pretty hefty dose of 2CB, so we kind of need your help. His state is starting to spill over into my state, and I just need you to come and check him out, and pretty much I need you to take us home because he's freaking out, and I'm worried about him. I don't want him to do something stupid, because, yeah, who knows what he's capable of. Now, this woman just really didn't like me because she kept saying to Jasmine, oh, you gotta stay, you're off work now. I think this was someone she worked with. She's like, yeah, stay longer. I got us all drinks, come sit down, tell your boyfriend and his friend to come sit down. And I was just like, oh, no, I'm sorry, we have to go. And she just kind of lost it on me. She was basically telling me that I was the most controlling boyfriend on the planet because I was insisting that she go. And she was fighting for Jasmine, saying that she had to stay and not to put up with my shit and to just like make me wait for her and not let me ruin her night. I just flat out said to her, I said, look, do you see my friend over there who looks like he should be on a spaceship? Well, we need to go because I'm trying to take care of him. It has nothing to do with me trying to pull Jasmine away from a good night. I just need her help so we can drive him home because I'm worried about our friend. I don't want him to have a, full-out panic attack and leave this bar in an ambulance. And she was just completely heartless. She did not care. She's fighting with me, and I'm on like 2CB, and I am not in the right mindset to be in any kind of a verbal confrontation here. And she was clearly drunk, and there was really no winning this argument. So I just, I tried to just end it and walk away and say to Jasmine, look, like, please, we need your help. We need you to drive. We got to take Aaron back to the house. So finally, we managed to get out of there in one piece, and Aaron is just disintegrating into madness with every moment. He's looking more and more and more frightened. He's really worried about his heart. He keeps he's got his hand on his heart, and he's just like he told me that it felt like his heart was just going to explode out of his chest. It was beating so hard. Long story short, we get Aaron back to the house. We check his pulse, we make sure that he's okay. I mean, his vitals were all fine. I mean, his heart rate was raised a little bit. I think he was somewhere around like 115. But that's nothing too crazy, especially considering the compound that he was on. It wasn't like he was in any immediate physical danger. He wasn't breaking out in a fever or anything. So yeah, he seemed fine. We just instructed him to drink water and to just try to keep himself cool and, you know, go in his room, lay down, put on some calming music. He tried that, but really nothing was working. I was just exhausted at this point. I was still tripping pretty hard. I was just watching the wallpaper, do a little dance, and I decided to go to bed and, you know, woke up the next day, and I believe Aaron told us that he didn't even go to bed that night. He was up all night pacing and pacing and pacing, and he pretty much said he would never ever take that drug again for the rest of his life because it was god-awful. And I asked him, like, well, what were you going through? And he told us that he was absolutely convinced he was gonna die. He was just pacing around waiting to die. I'm not sure if this had to do with the trip he was in or just he was so fearful of the physical effects, but he was dead. I'm not sure if he explained it as close to an ego death, but he died that night, and he learned his lesson. You know, all that shit about a bad trip actually is a good trip in disguise. I think that's what this was for him. I'm not sure how his visuals were or if he really got anything else out of it except for fear, but on another occasion, my friend Chris tried 2CP, and he explained it as when you take acid, you know, and the visuals start doing this like wavy thing where they're kind of like moving and then they shrink back down. He said on 2CP, instead of waving back, it was just swirling. So the entire world was just going... Now, Chris had taken like 12 or so milligrams because Chris is a beast, meaning he got a lot more visual effects than Aaron did. So there was potential with this compound, but when you just look at how close the average dose is to overdose and that you can die from it, this is on my list of drugs that I just would never take. I would only consume things that I knew were physically safe or which could be taken in a physically safe way. And after this, Aaron definitely just stuck to things like 2CB and LSD and DMT, I believe. To quickly summarize this video, what I would say the key takeaways is to never ever try a new substance that you have not researched. Because you need to know what to expect in order to anticipate, well, you know, the different physiological effects or psychedelic effects, and also to never take a new compound, obviously out in public, in a dangerous area. I mean, I would hardly call that area we were in dangerous, at least not like our lives were at risk of being taken from us, but mentally it was a very dangerous area because we had Aaron who was just walking down streets, and when you're on one of these drugs, one street looks like the next street. You can get lost very easily. There's so much that can go wrong if you're alone or, you know, even with another dude and you're both tripping, which we were, which was awful. Luckily, I had my faculties together. I held it together in order to at least get us to where someone who was sober could take care of us, but you know, that's not always the case. I've had nightmare trips. You don't want to trip unless you're in a safe, comfortable environment. You can't control very many aspects of a trip, and the few things you can control are, say, your environment. At least hopefully you can. So you want to handle the stuff that you can have some say over. You always want to have a reason for tripping too, beyond just, it's fun. The famous worst reason that anyone's ever had, which led to a lot of people's nightmare experiences and trauma and pain and regret. Yeah. Don't just do it for fun, guys. These are some very serious tools that must be treated with respect. Don't make those same mistakes that Aaron and me learn from it, man. Be safe with your drug use. Join our Patreon family, link over here. Your support keeps us alive. Thank you, guys. And I will see all of you beautiful, gorgeous, just, mother bitches in the next video. Wink. Do that little sound effect, the ding. Yeah. Love you guys.